for everything. It would be outside every influence, seeing every influence. But obviously, we could never obtain such a perspective.
So then, since we can't, isn't objectivity just reality by consensus? Largest share
No,
consensus.
I think we can draw conclusions based on the substance of the information available. So we can draw very accurate and probabilistically accurate conclusions about things. We can say the world's round, we can say Einstein lived, we can say a lot of things with pretty absolute certainty, so we could establish those as being part of some objective truth.
Right, and I see the point, like, because it's useful, obviously. Like, if we have objective facts, then we can do science and, like, actually do stuff. So I think that's probably why I don't do anything, you know, like, with my life. Because I don't have an objective viewpoint to
Yeah, well, you can't have a logical mandate because all logic breaks down if you don't have those established premises. So yeah, in a sense, it'll give you a mission statement. If you establish something to be true, then you have some hope. But if you establish nothing to be true, yeah, then you're just going to be spinning, saying I don't know what road to take. There's no choices here because they're all equally roady.
Right, and I guess that's kind of gay, isn't it?
Yeah, okay. That's what we'll call it. Yeah, that's gay.
Yeah, if I'm stomping on anyone, sorry, I'll let you go on. But nobody can have an objective viewpoint. I mean, uh, all reality is subjective by virtue of the fact that we're all observers. I mean, if you observe let me just pick somebody, Jamie. If I observe the computer that you're looking at from your point of view, that's one subjective viewpoint. But then if you moved one foot to the left or to the right, those would, yeah, exactly. That would be two more subjective viewpoints. So where's the objective reality? There isn't one. There's just
Well,
a
there isn't
there's
one anyway by that
well
standard. I mean, if you're
well
gonna
wait
if you're gonna be if you're gonna sit there and cut slicing those kind of hairs, okay, then the point would be is that your perspective isn't even subjective because it's completely perceptual. So your perspective has nothing to do with reality anyway. You're not interacting with reality. You're interacting with an interpretation of reality, based on the mechanics of photons flying through the air to decide what an object is. So your whole perception is just a model of reality anyway. All you're interacting with is a model of reality created inside your perception. So if you're going to split the goddamn hairs, there's no reality. Okay, but the fact is that we have a reliable perceptual senses. We can make some absolute statements about them and their reliability and probability, and so we can model our world in a way where we can understand that Jamie could exist in position A, or he could exist in position B, or C, or D, or E, or F, or G, and we could understand that these are the probabilities and possibilities, and we could understand that it's not likely that he's Donald Duck, it's not likely that he's this, and we can have all those processes of elimination, and so it just, I think that's just splitting hairs. We're using the word objective to describe a perspective that's much better, much improved, much more expansive, larger frame of reference than the narrow frame that we have in our subjective, confined life. It's objective when you've expanded the reference points, when you understand the context of the existence, when you can see the human being on a continent, on a planet Earth, in a solar system, in a galaxy. That's an objective perspective, whereas if you're a first century man and you just see, I live in Dirt City, and that's all they know.
okay.
I hear you.
Uh, Go ahead, Jamie.
It's the relativity that bothers me. Like I have more of an objective view than my dog, you know? Like, but you see, that just leads me to, everything is by consensus. Like, the largest shared solution is considered to be truth. You see what I'm saying? Because without, like, a group of
Well,
people.
I just think consensus is a really dangerous word because there's lots of people who have completely uninformed opinions. So consensus is almost irrelevant. Opinion is irrelevant unless it's qualified. So unless you have a qualified sampling consensus among the unqualified is useless. Consensus among the qualified, well, then you might be talking about something that means something. But there's no point in allowing people who think the world is flat to opine on the subject of Earth roundness.
Well said. I think that's the closest I've come to understanding the whole objective idea. You know, Gary, I have a history of a problem with understanding that idea, even though it's simple.
All right. I don't know if this is an appropriate.
Who cares?
Time to
We're just looking at the
or...
people.
Gary
Another
John.
white-haired girl, though. This is good. These little blondie girls showing up.
Oh, I will.
Yeah, Gina Magadi is definitely the hottest one here.
Yeah, well, I know, but I'll have to kick him. Yeah. Oh, they turned the mic off. Good. Good for you, girls. Couldn't you turn it off and turn it back on again? Come on. Get with the program. Mic off. Mic off. No, you can't. Oh, I see. He's telling us to turn our mics off. What a retard. Doesn't he know that we get our power from our microphone being on? God, what a stupid fucktard. How could he not understand that? God, they're gonna make a movie about him. He's so retarded.
Okay.
What the hell are you talking
Picking
about?
up where we left off, presuming there isn't a delay and I'm not stomping on anyone. Look, there's no objective reality. There's only subjective observers. You move, Jamie, you move a foot to your left.
You're repeating yourself.
All right. Look, the only way to have an objective reality, Gary, is to fucking observe that computer monitor from every point in space, which no one can do.
That would be perfect objectivity, right? So no, we can't do anything even close. We can't come 80% or 70%. Bullshit. Okay, there isn't just absolute objective perspective and then everything else. Okay, it's on a scale. All right, and so it's just, you're just splitting fucking hairs, and you're saying objective can only mean perfectly objective. It can't mean anything less than perfect. And all I'm arguing is that with our brains and with our ability, we are able to model quite accurately. It doesn't have to be explicitly perfect. We don't have to know exactly how much the Earth weighs and exactly how much the Sun weighs and exactly how much the Mars weighs to understand the interactions and do some math and to play around with those models in our fucking head and call it an objective modeling game. Okay, because we have no subjective influence. We don't want to rape Mars. We don't want to have a friendship with Earth. We aren't going to gain anything. Like the sun isn't going to pay us some money, and we're not corrupted, and we don't have any personal influences. And so we're doing something objective, and it can be called that. And it's this idea that there's only one objective, and it's not this most absolute perfect objective. It's just you're just ruining the language. You're taking away a perfectly good word and a perfectly good concept. There's a huge difference between something being in the maze and looking at the maze and something being outside the maze looking at the maze. And we should have different words for those two things. One of them is a limited, subjective, fucking goddamn observer, and one is an expanded objective point of view.
I think I totally understand what you're saying, Gary. Like, if I'm saying that there's like no objectivity, then we just redefine the word objectivity, like so that it's the most objective thing, right? Like otherwise we're just turning language into uselessness, right? Of course there's an idea objectivity, like whatever it is, even though there's no perfect objectivity. Like nobody's ever suggested to me before that it's not black and white, like you just suggested that.
Well, I'm just saying that we still need the concept and to understand the distinctions between these things, and you're not going to do it by calling it some sort of bastardization, like this is subjective and this is super subjective and this is double infinite subjective. You know what I mean? I mean, that just gets to be kind of silly. I mean, it's subjective as soon as there's a corruption, a limitation. All right, but if you expand it to a point where it has all the knowledge necessary to draw the limited conclusion, as long as we're not drawing our conclusions beyond the evidence that our objectivity has made available to us, as long as I'm describing the maze and I'm not describing the maze in relationship to, beyond the frame of my reference point, then what I've gleaned from that perspective is objectively pure. It's clean. It's not bad information just because it's not complete information.
Right, and that's not dangerous at all. It's useful. Like, you see the type of objectivity that I was thinking about that is, like, dangerous and stupid. Like, uh, but I see the one you're talking about, and that's useful. So obviously I should embrace that, not fight it or try to redefine it or argue with it.
Well, I'm just saying there's a thing called dogma that's out there that disguises itself as objectivity, okay, and it's just simplicity and it's made up. And so that's no good. But I'm just, but there's a point is that you could say something like, O.J. Simpson, we can find him guilty. Not because we wanted him to be guilty, not because we dislike him, but because the objective evidence, okay, when you put the objective facts available together, they point to a probability of guilt.
Right, see, it is a probability, and I guess that, see, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I feel like I want objectivity to be, like, fallible, but it doesn't have to be, does it? Like, because it's really about usefulness. Like, it's really about what we can pragmatically and actually do with our objective information. Like, knowing the world is round, we can fly around it. You know, uh, like, that's the use there. Right? It's taking me a
Yeah,
long
I
time.
mean, as long as the pragmatic isn't compromising a principle, then yeah, you got to go with that. As long as being practical isn't slaughtering the principle. So as long as you're not, I mean, obviously there's some things you can take a risk with, and other things you can't take a risk with. All right, so you don't take a 1 in 1,000 risk, creating a sun plasma. You know what I mean? Or something that, that'll liquefy you in 38 milliseconds or some kind of silly thing. You know what I mean? There's some things you can risk. Like, you don't play around with smallpox, without having as fail-safe and as perfect terms of how perfect your conclusions are, how invulnerable your conclusions of safety, you know what I mean, have been designed. So they have to have a very high probability that you haven't missed anything. Whereas if you're worried about spilling some milk, you say, okay, I can have a 50-50 chance because who the fuck cares if I spill some milk?
This is the first time we talked about this where it hasn't ended in you taking me because you think I'm trying to piss you off.
It's hard to know when you're just being, whatever, when you're playing your word games and when you're not. So,
I'm so much
um,
dumber than you think. Like, that's the thing. Like, I'm really just an idiot.
yeah, well, we know that's not true. But whatever. We'll take that as part of the game. I'm just an idiot. Let's all just pretend I'm an idiot. Yeah, let's just do that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Better for me to.
I'm pretty good at detecting bullshit. I think Jamie's on the level for the most part. I mean, he tries to, he's got some clever innuendos, but I think he's mostly on the level for the most part. Either that or I'm just completely fooled by his act, but I don't think so. You know, Gary, I mean, you and I agree on the most important things, which is, the suffering on this planet, and that's the core. I mean, that's the core treatise of our videos that we agree upon. It seems like when we get most antagonistic is when we get into these ephemeral realms where we deal with you know uh, who or what created the universe and what's in charge of it, and objective reality versus subjective reality, like the debate we just had. And by the way, I'm not backing down on that one iota. Uh, but it doesn't get to the core pith essence of the problem here, which is colossal clusterfuck horror